Bentornati, welcome back to my show, Itali-Echo. Today, the topic is very close to my heart. We are talking about infertility, hope, and a very unique journey to motherhood together with the author of the book, Rainbow Baby. Welcome to my show, Jennifer Shebib. Hi, Jen. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Would you please share your journey with our audience?
Of course, yes. In order for me to tell the story, it really starts with I wasn't sure if I wanted children when I was younger, growing up. I was career focused, much throughout my life. Went to college, started a career, and then when I met my now husband Brad in my late 30s, having a family came to light, and my doctors at the time, they say, it might be difficult. You are, getting a little older. But I heard about so many women that had kids well into their 40s and thought, well, I think we can do this. It's been done. It might be difficult, but I had no idea what we were in for. When we tried to have the baby on our own, we were successful after about a year. But then, unfortunately, at the first appointment for ultrasound, there was no heartbeat. So that was our first loss. And after that situation, our doctor said, you can try again, but given your age, you may want to look at IVF as an option. So we did decide to reset, try again in another year, and then when we weren't successful, we decided to go with IVF with my ex. And the process, as I describe in the book, is very taxing emotionally, physically, and we had a good result from the retrieval process. But then when it came time to fertilize embryos, that's where we ended up with none. We had 12 eggs and ended up with 0 embryos in the end. And while I was going through it and it was very taxing, I said to my husband, I don't know if I can do this again. But then after it didn't happen, and that it not happening did not take away the want for the child. So we made the decision to do it again. And spoiler alert, we did it multiple times again after the failed rounds. And this was, obviously some years ago now. Insurance covering these processes was not really a thing, but thankfully I worked for a company that did cover it because it is very expensive. So that allowed us to go through the process multiple times. After we had our 7th failed, we again decided to reset and think about maybe going for adoption. I just didn't think my body was going to be able to have a pregnancy. So we went down that path, and we were identified by a young woman who we thought selected us and then ultimately did not after going through all that process. So we took a step back again and decided this time, I was in my early 40s, and we talked with our doctor about the donor egg process. And, the reason I went with adoption before donor egg was because it seemed to even the playing field. Like it wouldn't be genetically my child or my husband's, because I was concerned going a donor route would make me feel like, well, the child is my husband's, but not genetically mine. How would I feel about that? So we had to going through that adoption process and then through counseling once we decided to do the donor egg, really helped me understand that process better. Well, what carrying the baby would mean to me. And I was able to get past that, thankfully. So after all of that, we ended up going with a donor egg and successfully having our rainbow baby, Nicholas, who will be turning 7 in 2 months.
That's an amazing, compelling story. So, what is the main message that you would like the listening audience to know about your book?
Really that, fertility and infertility is a taboo topic, one that women, may have a lot of shame and guilt around talking about publicly, which is fine. It's very private and personal. But I told my story hoping that it would allow other women to feel less guilty, less shameful. There is hope, there is resources. So my deciding to tell the story and what I hope will land and resonate with individuals, women and men, because it's a process for them too. That you can go through a lot, but you can come out on the other side. You just need to leverage your resources, educate yourself. Things like freezing your eggs wasn't something my doctor even talked about when I was in my 30s. And I had kind of wish I would have known that, maybe I would have done that. So just really hoping that it is a message of hope, resilience, and opportunity for others that might be going through a same journey.
Absolutely. Thank you. And what are the challenges of becoming a first-time mother later in life?
That's a great question. Most of my friends and family have kids going to college, and I have an infant. So I didn't really have anyone that was going through the same things as me, like not sleeping and the feedings and the fussing, and to really kind of lean on. And they'd already been through all of that years ago. I mean, they certainly were there to support me, but it felt kind of isolating that I didn't have, another mother with this, with at my age going through this too. So that was really hard. I had to, like I said, I had a good support system, but I really had to look for others that were, my age that could understand what that meant. That you're going to have the folks that say, well, you're going to be in your 70s when your child graduates and what that brings. And yeah, we factored all of that in. But I mean, it's still a joy and a blessing to have a child at any age. And the truth, that's the truth of it all. So.
Of course. And why did you feel the urge to tell your story in a book?
Really, because when I was going through all of this, I didn't feel like, as I mentioned, I had support, but not the stories or hearing about women that went through a similar process to have a baby. You would see and hear about women in their late 40s having children, but not how they had those children, which again is a very personal choice to not say, and I obviously respect that. But I would have liked to have heard from other women that, yeah, I had to go through IVF 6 times, or we had to use a donor egg, or I just didn't feel like those stories were out there. There were a lot of books coming from the science angle or the doctor angle about the process, but not real life stories of women going through that. So that's what motivated me to write the book, so that there'd be a resource out there for other women that just wanted to hear a raw story about someone else going through a similar journey.
Thank you. And last question for you. Any other messages beyond infertility in your book?
Really, it's faith and resilience as well. It takes a lot of strength to go through, an IVF multiple times and miscarriages twice. And there's a lot of emotion around that. And I had a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of points of, even after having my son, I had really bad postpartum depression, and I carried a lot of guilt because everything I went through to have him, he was finally here, and I felt that disconnection, and it was very, very challenging to work through that, and I had to obviously seek help and to get myself through it. So yeah, it's not just about infertility; it's about rising above, a chapter in your life that you didn't plan for. I mean, you know. It's so simple to say, women have kids all the time, but it's not always, my sister-in-law had 4 kids without even having to think about it, but that everybody's story is different. So that's one of the reasons, or one of the themes I hope people take from my book is really just resilience and persistence and hope.
Thank you. And where can we find Rainbow Baby?
So Rainbow Baby is out, available in hardcover and soft cover on Amazon Books, Barnes and Noble, from my publisher's website, Milton and Hugo. There will be an audio version coming soon, but right now it is readily available at most bookstores.
Thank you so much for joining us today on WNTN Radio Boston.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time.